Hello everyone. This is your host, metaKnyts, coming at you live from Digiterra. This is a really exciting day. We are here to give you the FireCyde for episode 1.0, which is the first iteration of the new version of our metaKnyts saga, the first of season 1, which kind of leads on from our pilot episodes. But before we get into it, let me bring my co-host on, Gizmo Knight. What up? What up?
Hey, what's going on? Glad to be on here. Excited to finally be able to share this with the public. We've had the pilot episode, but we're finally getting into it. So much going on in this story. I'm really excited to be able to share this and just be able to talk about it with people finally.
Yeah, and there's a real exciting bunch of first times here that we're doing with this episode, where this is the first one from the new season of content. I'm really stoked. I think there's a big leap forward that we make in the artwork. There's a lot of the characters that are introduced for the first time with this episode as well. And, this is the first time that we've made an episode available for sale, both in print as an NFT or as a digital collectible, and also to the general public, not just to our investors. So it's very exciting, and we've started to have some good sales numbers around that as well. But it's really exciting because this is where the story takes off proper. So anyhow, without any further ado, what do you say? I think it's time we just got right into it, don't you?
Yeah, just jump into it. And again, it's gonna blow people's minds because it's a motion comic. So I don't think people really understand that.
Yeah, it's a good point. So yeah, I mean, what we'll do, and that's a great point. So, we do have the physical print version of the comic. You can get this on Amazon around the world now. We're kind of in and out of the metaverse because of, cameras and all this stuff at the moment. So it looks kind of invisible. But, so this is now one of 3 episodes that you can buy in print on Amazon. But we are going to go through the story with you today in this motion comic format, which is very novel and is something that we're really pioneering in terms of delivering motion comics as NFTs. Very far ahead of the market in terms of where we are with that. But all of that for another day. Let's get into the story. All right. So, in fact, let's go full screen. metaKnyts season 1.0 FireCyde. Here we go. You heard it first here. So this season really starts with a strong statement, like power, freedom cannot be given and taken. This to me is kind of pretty evident of what the whole crypto movement is about. It's about taking control, not being given it, taking it. So we start with a recap on what's going on, what's happened from the last episode. Deji, our lead character, has had his encounter with Satoshi in the alley, and now he's off to Digiterra. Now, start the story from this really interesting point here, which is, let me pull him down a little bit. This is one of the first Fang characters that we meet, Annalise Tokini. And this first encounter with her is her going into Digiterra, and we can see she's playing back the scene where she and Satoshi have this, where Satoshi and Deji meet in the alley. So we see her actually going into Digiterra and going back to this scene in the alley where Satoshi is fighting with these Fang agents, and Deji comes to his rescue. But then we're immediately shot to this scene, which is in Terra as well. So we start to get this interplay between Terra and Digiterra, and here we encounter for the first time Lord Rothberg, who is like one of the chief baddies, really key king baddies at the Rothberg Investment Bank. So we start to see what's going on, and we kind of get a little bit of a background around this encounter that's happening in this alley. And it's an interesting, there's a lot of play on words and kind of double entendres and stuff that are dispersed throughout it here. But essentially, we see that Annalise believes that she is deleting all of this content of this encounter from cameras. And there's this interesting scene here now where we see a police station where there are some officers who are observing this scene, and one of them is watching this, and then suddenly the scene kind of disappears. and he's sort of trying to figure out, well, what happened here. You know, there's again some jokes there about how they could have picked the guy up and just kind of wrapped up any kind of amount of charges against the person, but suddenly it's disappeared from the archives. So we see that the Fangs have this ability to manipulate and influence surveillance footage that's provided by some of the surveillance systems. So we start to see, you know, their abilities there, and then there's this draconian punishment that is passed down from Lord Rothberg against these Fang agents who have failed him in their attempt to get hold of Satoshi and to sort of tackle him down. So you know, it's quite interesting because they're very corporate punishments. They kind of rescind their insurance cover for their family, and we also get this implication that there are these test trials that they're doing with vaccines that are being introduced, these different forms of cancer. So again, a lot going on in metadata in terms of what's going on in the background here. But we see this relationship between Rothberg and Annalise Tokini, particularly here. You know, she's chief of staff, senior sort of, but like right-hand person, she's really sort of his operational arm. And we start to see how close, in terms of how close to that power base that Annalise Tokini particularly is, but also how that relationship's built. And then this is like really our first re-encounter with Deji since the pilots now, where he's somewhere in this sanctuary, this haven, with the cypherpunks. And now we get to meet one of the key cypherpunks as well. So this is where he meets Spartacus. You know, in the pilot episodes, the cypherpunks were more this sort of anonymous group, but now we actually get to start to meet some of the characters, very specifically, who are involved. And so Spartacus is a really critical early one because he introduces Deji. He inducts him into Digiterra. So we go through this whole process here now, where he's showing Deji about how to access Digiterra and really how to view it, and giving him the option of either having contact lenses, glasses, or a syringe in order to gain access. And Deji sort of goes through a little bit of a reflection on why he prefers contact lenses as an option. And there's this interesting exchange and banter between the two of them as Spartacus starts to explain to Deji what Digiterra is. And so now, you know, again, he's being instructed based on what Satoshi has told him, how much access to give Deji to Digiterra, and to just sort of walk him through there. And obviously in the pilot episodes, we got to see Deji going into Digiterra with Satoshi, but it was in a very hurried manner. And so now we actually start to see it in a much more managed framework, where he's actually being schooled and given an understanding of what it is. And, you know, as we go through these different layers, I always love this part. It reminds me of like time travelers, you know, as we go from the surface web to the dark web, with all the nefarious activity, down into the deep web here. And, you know, this sort of idea of the deep web being this ocean of corporal data, till we transcend into this different realm and we enter into Digiterra effectively, and we start to see this. And, you know, the aesthetic and the design here kind of starts to reflect this code anchored world, this world where that's really built around code. So, you know, gives us a really good understanding of 3 different layers and how those lead into this different realm. And Spartacus really starts to give Deji a sense of what's involved there. But then more importantly, he then starts to really give a little bit of a backstory to Satoshi. I mean, in the pilots, we found out about Satoshi was a protege and ward. But now, and I love this particular scene, because we do something that's really important here is like we approach this issue about quantum time shift, but we start to really explore the scope and scale of the saga and story. So you see this reference to different epochs, different eras in time, kind of going back to these African shaman. These are actually Ifa priests. And we connect that all the way through to data centers and to code. And, there's a connection here because you look at the oracles of Ifa and the number system. It's like a number system that's used in bits and bytes. But then we explode it all the way out, and there's this spaceships, and it's like, whoa, what's going on here? Spaceships with interstellar travelers. And you may see here, there's a Martian Venusian play here. It's kind of subtle, but you see these are Martian vessels, which are more belligerent war vessels, versus the Venusian vessels, which is like got these dignitaries and travelers. And this is a really special scene because here, you actually see the cypherpunks and the fangs behind each other, right? This is like Spartacus bringing Deji into Digiterra to see what happened when Bitcoin was created. This is going to go down as a really important theme in history. So this is the subprime slime monster. We wanted to really kind of find a way to really bring this to life in a way that was very graphic and potent. So it's and you see all this Fang army being led by Rothberg, Annalise, and then Tyrantus. We'll introduce Tyrantus, another key Fang figure at this point here. And you see this is January 9, 2000. This is January 2009 when Bitcoin was created, and we're seeing what from Digiterra, the perspective of what was actually happening. And this imagery was very powerful. This huge squid-like octopus-like creature squeezing this tree of Yggdrasil, which comes from Nordic tradition, but it's like a play on the tree of life. And then Satoshi lined up with the cypherpunks, Spartacus, Nimrod, Tucson, all going to war against Rothberg with Tukini and Tyrantus. And we're seeing them actually trying to get into the creation of Bitcoin, and Satoshi lets us know here as well that it goes beyond Bitcoin. It's not just about money, because he understands the quantum time shift is happening. And Rothberg is like, you can't be allowed to live as a result of that. And we saw these kind of like samurai, kind of ninja moves from Satoshi in the pilot, but really this is like its glorious moment. And this is a scene. This is where we see the fangs in motion. This is Annalise, and Tyrantus. They've got hold of Nimrod, and they're draining. She is draining Nimrod's data, and doing this thing. And this is kind of her superpower. When Spartacus comes into the rescue and is able to comes down. Data glides down and pulls down this power and. Pafukas, as they say in Nigeria, the whole place, and gets rid of all the fangs there. And this battle really goes on, and Nimrod then kind of flips Tyrantus around, and so you kind of get to see this battle. But again, coming back to the squid, I really loved that because it was inspired by the kind of model of Goldman Sachs as the giant squid, which is kind of a narrative that's out there in the cryptoverse around the banking systems and how they were strangling the financial system. But this is like the battle. There's and I love the kind of drumbeat in the background going on here, because this is the moment where Satoshi is about to unleash the Genesis block, and it's basically playing a game of keeping Rothberg captured in these crypto containers. And this is it. This is the Genesis block in Satoshi's hand. And you can see inoculating it, planting it into the tree of Yggdrasil, which is like the global financial system. And Rothberg freaking out, not really knowing what is going on, but just angered at the defiance of Satoshi and the revolution and the rebellion that is being led. And then Tucson really coming to his fore, creating a portal to teleport them all out of the place. And another fantastic scene with, you know, cypherpunks checking out after the Genesis block has been implanted in the tree of Yggdrasil. And this is a big victory. This was a massive, massive war and battle and war that there was a massive victory for Satoshi and the cypherpunks back that day. So we wanted to really pay homage to that and give it the real strength that the real focus and attention that it required. And it's a bookmark. It's definitely a bookmark of the season. We start the season off really strong with this explanation from a Digitarian perspective, what happened when Satoshi created the Bitcoin protocol and the ramifications and reverberations of what that did to the FANG sort of overlords and to the control. And then, you know, the saga then goes on because Spartacus is then kind of like, okay, we need to get you to Digitera. We need to get you to go and see the courier, which is what the mission is that they've been given there. And, you know, so off we go. So, but, you know, I think this whole context of seeing the Genesis block creation and really getting the context around what was happening in Digitera as that was being created really sets us up for the saga. And, you know, it's quite a ride from here till the end of the season, which I'm not going to give you any insights about what happens at the end of the season for the moment. But yeah, that's the story.
Yeah,
Let's
exciting stuff. And like you said, I think people will look back again. This is an independent project. This is not, you know, part of Marvel Comics. It's not part of DC Comics or, you know, on some of these other independents. This is a total independent project. So as this becomes more widely known, and when the metaKnyts saga becomes a household name, and we know it will become a household name, people are going to look back at the pilot episodes and they're going to look at this pivotal episode, like you said, when it's the end of the season, on to season 2, season 3, season 4, everybody's going to say, hey, I need episode 2. That's where it happened, right? That's where Deiji found out really what, you know, the stakes were. That's where, right? Satoshi Nakamoto is a mythical figure even today, right? Nobody knows who Satoshi Nakamoto is. And I give you a lot of credit as a fan of this project in using him as a character, because I believe in the future we're going to see other people in other mediums use the character of Satoshi Nakamoto in stories, in myths and legends, and this is perfect for that. So like you said, when you're starting off a story, you have different things that you can do where you can kind of just build characters, or maybe drop people into the story and then develop the story and backtrack and go back in time and explain certain things. But I think you took a very good decision, and you could go into that. What was the decision as far as starting from that point, as opposed to now you see a lot of people kind of start halfway into the story and then bring people back and rewind and do, you know, flashbacks and that kind of thing?
Well, I mean, you know, for me personally, I think an important, you know, Satoshi was actually, that's kind of what got me into Bitcoin in the first place. I just loved the story, you know, the story about this guy, Satoshi Nakamoto, having created this like new currency that was usurping the whole kind of financial system, to me was phenomenal. And then as I started to think about, you know, FANGs, you know, the FANG stock at the time, Facebook, Amazon, Netflix, and Google, and, you know, BAT stock, it just kind of all tied up towards a perfect kind of vampire story and or mythological story. And since Satoshi was such a key part of it, that was good. And I will say, though, without giving too much away, we were very purposeful to make sure we wanted to definitely bring Satoshi's narrative into the story, and it remains. But we also wanted to keep Satoshi a very mythical figure. So, you know, there's the pilot episodes are very much anchored around Satoshi. They're in fact, really anchored around Satoshi's origin story. We wanted to tell Satoshi's origin story and Deiji, a little bit of Deiji's origin story, so that we could kind of understand their human connection in that regards.
Mhm.
But you know, you're not going to see a lot of Satoshi. Let me put it like
Mhm.
that. That was something that we were very deliberate about as well. We wanted him to appear at the beginning of the story, kind of set the
Mhm.
foundation, and then let the story go on effectively. So now, and that was very important in this particular episode. It was
Mhm.
very important that we wanted to start from a big battle, a big
Yeah.
victory of Satoshi's. And we
Yeah.
wanted to put that in context, have a big sort of fight scene and a big battle, but where there was a victory for Satoshi and the cypherpunks, and use that to kind of set up. And that's why we introduced, there's a lot of characters like Spartacus that are introduced. We actually introduced Satoshi's key generals through this
Mhm.
saga, through this episode, or rather. Spartacus, Nimrod, and Tucson. And we see them going to battle with him as they go to form the Genesis block, which is kind of in line with the what we know about the creation
Mhm.
of Bitcoin in that regards.
And it seems, I guess, it plays right into it, right? The story is a story that I've gotten access to some of the story without, again, no spoilers or anything like that. I think a lot of people can relate to some of the themes in there. Everyone doesn't have to be interested in, blockchain technology, but I think people can relate to, the financial system. It impacted people in many different ways all over the world. And just looking into, just as the started of the episode, as you broke down in that police precinct, in that room, that boardroom with Count Rothberg and Annalise, right? That manipulating that data, right? Right now, what are we seeing at the time of this recording? Elon Musk just bought Twitter, right? And then some people are talking about what are the pros and cons of that. They've already talking about a mass exodus of people leaving Twitter because they believe it's going to open up the floodgates to bad actors because Elon Musk is a free speech, type of person. He doesn't care, right? We don't know. We don't know, right? But we do know that right now, data is gold, right? Data is the new gold, and I like the story and knowing how that ties into it. Again, um, how much of the data part of it was your factor? How much of it was the financial part of it as far as building the theme of the story?
I will say it's a great question. Again, without giving too much away, this is kind of part of why we start season one with the Genesis block, which is
Mm-hmm.
really like about the financial revolution and the subprime slime monster. That
Mm-hmm.
octopus squid is designed.
Mm-hmm.
It's modeled on Goldman Sachs, if I'm brutally honest. Right? The squid is what what's often called in financial circles, right? Because they got their
Mm-hmm.
tentacles and everything.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so, and Lord Rothberg is an investment banker, and very much the Bitcoin revolution was about money, absolutely. And that's an important part of the story because, in many senses, the metaKnyts in season one, what we see is the kind of the beginnings of this. And again, this really plays out over the first 3 seasons, to be honest with you. But there is the arc of the story is that the cypherpunks, Satoshi and the cypherpunks, their revolution, which was about decentralizing money, is then, they hand the baton over to the metaKnyts, whose revolution is about decentralizing data. And
Okay.
because data is even more fundamental than money, it's kind of where the story ultimately goes. And I will
Mm-hmm.
say, again, without giving too much away, at the end of season one, we kind of, well, let's just say the Genesis block is the first episodes, and the origin pod is
Mm-hmm.
the last episode of the season. So we kind of go through this transition from financial decentralized money to decentralized data through the
Mm-hmm.
whole of season one. And there will be a lot that we reflect on through that as we go as over the course of the saga. And I don't, it won't,
Mm-hmm.
it, we only touch on it a little bit in season one. In season 2 and 3, that will come to full fruition in terms of the difference between that. And and this is kind of part of, I think what I can say again, I'm always mindful of how much to give away, right? But what I can say is that Satoshi comes to a realization in the saga that his innovation is at risk of being hijacked and used by the fangs and the bats to, enslave people even more effectively. So that's and that's, to me, I think, is a real reflection of where the crypto industry is at the moment.
Yeah.
The crypto industry, Web3 as they call it, is, at risk, in danger of becoming, is in danger of becoming more corrupt than Web2 and more destructive than Web2 in that regard.
Yeah.
This is something we kind of really explore substantially.
Yeah, the whole argument of true decentralization.
Yeah, and I don't, and to me, I think, I mean, and this is a controversial point of view. I'm an ethics maximalist. I'm a human maximalist, and sometimes decentralization is the right answer. Sometimes it is not, and that's not. Decentralization is absolutely centrally important and is the arc of the story in many regards. But it's still a tool. Decentralization is a tool, and you have to use decentralization to achieve ethical outcomes. That's the key. That's the most important thing. So, and I think ultimately the Web3 space needs to understand that. It needs to kind of be human led, and we need to be leading for outcomes that are human centered and that advance humanity as a priority. And whether it's, there are times when maximum decentralization will be needed, but there are times when we will need hybrids, and there are times even when centralization will be needed. So I think it's really kind of getting all of that in perspective, but that's kind of something again that we explore.
So back to the comic, I know one of the things, right, we're seeing, and I was sharing messages with you earlier this week about how some of the wider entertainment platforms and media platforms starting to catch on to the digital collectible bug. And now we're starting to see the mass promotion and the mass dissemination of that right in time with what we're doing, because the metaKnyts project has been leading the forefront in digital collectibles in the comic book as an NFT. So how can people get access to it? I'm sure there are going to be people who are going to see this recording who haven't been on the website.
Yeah, that's a great point. So yeah, and I think so let me just share my screen, and I guess I should go to, let's do it like this. All right. Can you hold on a second? There we go. Wow. All right. Can you see my screen now?
It's still loading.
Okay. Well, but yeah, while it's loading, and let me just go to full screen here so that we can kind of see the website. But I think that's a really important point that you made there as well, that, we kind of pioneered this genre of crypto comics, collectible, and digital collectibles, of course, was started, but we're at the forefront. One of the earliest projects in that space. Was certainly the first crypto comic collection. But I think it's an important point that we are a unique kind of IP. There is nothing like this yet. There's a gazillion NFT projects out there. But in terms of a comic saga that is actually about the crypto revolution, that's kind of told in this sci-fi manner, that is delivered as NFTs and delivered as animations and all whatnot in this context, there is nothing like it. There is nothing in the Marvel DC universe around comics that is comparable to the metaKnyts IP in that regards. And by the same token, there's nothing in the cryptoverse in terms of the NFT projects out there that are as well developed as this. So we have a 13-part saga that's already fully developed. And, when you come to our, we're very comprehensive. So, you can not only, I say that you cannot point to any crypto project out there where you can buy the comics not only as motion comics. I mean, I don't actually know any of them that are available as motion comics at all at the moment. But then also as print. So you can buy all of our paperback versions of our comics on Amazon around the world right now today. So, and that's great, because I think for me, the whole purpose of metaKnyts is that it is about onboarding people into the cryptoverse and kind of introducing people to this space and to the why of crypto. But yeah, I mean, you can literally, if you know how to use Amazon, you can basically participate with metaKnyts, and you can go to Amazon and you can buy these comics right now today on Amazon in the first 3 episodes around the world. So I don't know any kind of crypto comic project that can talk to that other than the traditional Marvel, DC, and sort of other independent titles in that regard. But there's nothing that is integrated in that sense. And then to be able to buy as a digital motion comic as well is kind of, again, unprecedented. So again, you can buy these specifically on our site at the moment, and you can connect your MetaMask wallet to it. Oops, that's not what I was hoping to show you. Sorry, but yeah, it's that's that's just a little block between StreamYard and the site itself. Me trying to connect MetaMask there, but essentially, the ability to just close that. Sorry, 1 second. Yeah, the ability to buy both physical. Let me go back to streaming. We need to get a producer to, if there's anyone out there and actually there's some big news coming about what we're going to be doing on the media front soon. So I assure you, we will have a producer soon. Actually, you know what I needed to do? Let's do this new window. That's easier. I will go here and go back to the site. But yeah, the ability, to have a project, an IP where you can literally buy, print versions of the comic, digital versions of the comics as NFTs, merchandise. You can do all of this on the metaKnyts.com website. And then there's our PFPs here as well. So, currently we're on drop 0, which is the emissary. Next drop will be
and
coming.
Again, for me, it was very interesting to see, right? When you launched the physical comic, that again tied back to Terra, Digiterra. So you have the physical comic, you have the motion comic in the metaverse, so that people can experience these both in different realms.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's for me, that's actually a really important point. That's a really important point, that the project is really perfectly poised to bridge this world between digital phygital, is what it's called. And we won an award for phygital, in the CES award for 2021, Blockchain Phygital Awards, because I think this is a thing to bridge this world of analog and digital. We are at the forefront of that. And I think that's a really important point. It might seem like not such a big deal to have a print and digital version of the comic, but this really positions us to actually have a very advanced model for bridging the analog and digital world. And so, if you, again, I'll just go back to the screen. But yeah, you for example, and we're building the metaverse, and that's all coming and all whatnot. And I don't want to kind of get into all of that too much at the moment, but I will you can see all of this on the website, and I'm just playing this to give you an insight, right, of how comprehensive this project is. When we talk about this digital integration, we're at the forefront with Unreal Engine 5 in terms of building a metaverse platform, an ethical metaverse platform, where you'll be able to go into Digiterra and experience this kind of Digiterran world, in this really immersive manner, right? But to be able to tie that back to the physical world. And so we're actually trying to crack stuff. And, there are, the thing about this crypto space is that everything you kind of have to do new, right? We have to make everything from scratch. And but even just simple things like, how do you tie buying like a physical comic, for example, and how can you bind that to an NFT? It's a
Mm-hmm.
very, very tough problem to solve, you know. But we are at the forefront of that, and we are in, you know, we're experimenting and piloting with some things that creates this new kind of immersive experience. So I think, you know, I say that because I think, you know, it's we are laying the foundations for a new type of experience, a new
Mm-hmm.
type of media experience, a new type of, yes, we are a comic story like Black Panther or Spider-Man or Superman or Batman in that regards, but
Mm-hmm.
we are a story that is about crypto, so we're unique in that regards.
Mm-hmm.
But we also then have a new way for you to engage, and you can look at projects like Bored Ape Yacht Club, which, you know, is usually like my pet hate project. Or, but, you know, I have to say, you look at things like The Other Side, for example, and what they were able to achieve with getting 4,500 users concurrently on a single server in a metaverse environment. You can see that we are talking about new kinds of media experiences
Yeah.
with this technology, you know, with token gated access and this kind of thing. So to have an IP like metaKnyts, that is really at the fore, you know, where the content, you know, the story, the mythology of the IP is so well aligned with the technology,
Mm-hmm.
is unique, is really uniquely unprecedented. And I think that I feel really excited now. And actually, I'm going to give you a very quick sneak peek on something that we are going to be launching in the next week or so, hopefully. But our claim site, we've literally just created a claim site where you can now go and claim your own metaKnyts NFT if you're an investor. I know there have been lots of problems, and I will do a special show on this particularly because I need to kind of walk you through the process, but where you'll be able to go and claim your NFT yourself. So, you know, this is really, we are now at a point where we've got a really integrated offering that is in an IP that is uniquely suited to the space
Mm-hmm.
and in a manner that no one else does. And I'm really excited about, you know, going into the holiday season for one, you know, really strong manner. And there's some amazing announcements that we have coming for the holidays, starting with Thanksgiving. So stay tuned for that very shortly. But then going into 2023 in a really, really strong manner. So yeah, no, I think it's a really exciting time for the franchise
Yeah.
overall.
And as all comics, once you read one comic, you're waiting for the next issue to drop. So hopefully, people who are watching this have read the pilot episodes. They've read episode 2 because I've seen episode 3, and it's another groundbreaking episode. It's kind of like what happens when Neo takes the red pill, right? So just leave it at that. You said no spoilers, but
That's a
I
good way
think
of putting it.
they're
It's like,
gonna,
hey, you know, the Matrix meets Mr. Robot on the road to
yeah.
Wakanda, and of course Wakanda. You know, Wakanda's coming out next month as well. So yeah, it's
Yeah,
all about to get very live and very exciting in that regards. But yes,
yeah.
I agree with you. Episode 1.3 is, or episode 3 or other, sorry. Oh, and it's probably worth explaining to people. We've done a lot with the numbering system here. But essentially, we start at episode 0. 0 is a very important number in the metaKnyts lore. So, you know, we always anchor things from 0. So we started at the first episode was 0, following one was 1. And then that is why season 1.0. So every season kind of starts with 1.0 or with .0. So it will be season 1.0, season 2.0. Eventually we'll get to season 2. So there's always this kind of seasonal nomenclature in describing the numbers, but we will just have a sequential numbering: episode 1, 0, 1, 2, 3. Just keep going like that all the way through, like a normal comic convention in that sense.
Mhm.
So it's normal. The only difference is that we start from 0. Most comics start from 1, and we start from 0, which causes us some problems on Amazon and stuff like that, where they're not programmed for zeros, ironically. But but that's just the nomenclature. So number 2 is really the first one in season 1, but number 3 is the next one. That is pretty groundbreaking too. And we're really excited to be bringing that to you shortly. In the meantime, before that, we probably, almost certainly, will be dropping the next PFP character as well. Deji coming out in the next couple of weeks as well, prior to the release of number 3. Now that we're in season 1 proper, and of course the Reg CF campaign 2.0 is live. There'll be more articles and posts and stuff around that. But again, everything is available on metaKnyts.com. Everything is on metaKnyts.com. You can buy shares in the company, buy the PFPs, buy the motion comics, buy the print comics, buy merchandise, and see kind of insights around the game and stuff there too. So, go check it out.
Yeah, very exciting stuff.
Excellent. Well, look, thanks, Gizmo Knight, and we'll be back at you with back from the metaverse again a bit later in the next month. Yeah, thanks a lot for tuning in, and we look forward to sharing more information. And yeah, we'd love to get your feedback as well. There's quite a few people now who've got episode metaKnyts number 2, issue number 2, and we'd love to get your feedback. Hear what you think about the story. What are your questions, and kind of get some feelings from people, how they're finding the story as well. So reach out to us, Discord and all the other places. Again, everything is on metaKnyts.com. All the links to all the social platforms and everything are there. So all is one.
No one is all.